Welcome back to We Know Scripted TV, where tonight we are chatting about Industry Season 3, Episode 2, Smoke and Mirrors. My name is Grace, but of course I'm not alone. For someone who keeps calling this meeting room a war room, it's Josh Wigler. Josh, how you doing?
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds cooler when it's a war
It's
room.
war room.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You have like a room with a table? That's my war room.
You
War room.
mean a meeting room?
A meeting room. Yeah, I think that's right.
All right, well, someone else is here. Someone I'm going to ask to be the godmother to my firstborn child. What you going to say? No, it's Emily Fox. Emily, how you doing?
Are you going to ask 4 other people too, though? That's what's
Well,
not fair about this.
Maybe. Are you going to say
But
no?
how am I
Are they going to
supposed
say
to
no?
say no? Yeah,
Kids say no.
Emily, I feel like there's fewer things in the world that you would love more than a gaggle of people coming up to you and saying, I want you to be the godmother to my child.
Ask me to do a speech at your wedding. Ask me to be the godmother of your children. Ask me to be, I don't know, the caretaker of your child. If for some reason something happens and you need your children to go to someone responsible,
That is a
that's
godmother.
me.
That is what a godmother. Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
All right, so apparently Henry Muck gets off on urination. Emily Fox gets off on responsibility.
We all have our
really
kids.
do.
No king
As
shaming.
much
No king
responsibility as you can throw at Emily
Yeah,
Fox.
like even an usher at your wedding. I'll do it. I'll be like, "Hi, whose side of
Wow.
the family are you from? Let me
Oh
bring
my
you to your
God.
seat."
Can I very quickly? We're going to go off script very quickly. Many years ago,
because we know scripted, so
my friend got married, and my job at the wedding was to hold an umbrella that they had bought for his mother, who was like has a very sensitive to the sun.
Okay.
Because
Sun
it was
allergy.
very windy, and so I had to hold the umbrella, and then the umbrella did not sit her in the sun, but I thought that the umbrella was going to fall over. It was the most stressful day of my life. It was my friend's wedding, where I was holding an umbrella that was not being of use. That the only thing it could do at the wedding was fall over and crush.
Oh
some of the
no.
participants, but it did
Oh my
fall over,
gosh.
so I saved the day.
Good.
Well,
Good.
let's get out of the umbrella industry and jump into the ball pit of this episode.
Yeah.
Smoke and Mirrors. What a great episode I thought of Industry. Emily, I know you loved this one.
I watched it alone and then I watched it again with you.
Like and
that's
like
how much
with
I
an
really
with an
liked it.
hour in between.
Yeah, I
think.
took like an hour off
Yeah.
and then I was like ready to dive in and you were like, "Sure." So I thought that this episode was maybe one of the more fully formed, conceptually brilliant episodes I've seen of this series altogether.
Wow. High praise.
Yeah, I really loved all of the plots and the subplots. I thought that it was very well made and tailored and thoughtful. And I don't know if it was minimal Harper too. Like we're seeing Harper kind of dabble in everyone's lives, but she's not like screwing everyone up either. So maybe I felt more comfortable.
Well, is it anything to do with the fact that many characters this episode tell the younger, our main characters, like, stop messing around. Don't be delighted in like ruining people's lives. Some of this is very hypocritical, I think, depending on who it's coming from. But there's a lot of like, I don't know who taught you guys to do all this stuff, but you've been doing it way wrong, is basically the message we get from many characters in this episode.
Yeah, Eric to Yaz, Petra to Harper, basically like don't take delight in cutting people down. Where Petra had just like sort of kind of delighted in taking on her supposed bestie. But I guess like the relationship there is not exactly what Anna thought it was. Yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, I think like Harper's probably not the character to start with in this episode. I think she's probably the strongest example of like, wow, she's having a hard time getting away with it anymore. I think that probably the place to start would be, I mean, one of the beauties of this episode is how interwoven the whole storylines are. Like, definitely, like, Robert has his own thing going on in sections of this. Yaz has her own thing going on in sections of this. Harper does as well, but they all swirl together for the Lumi plot. And Lumi's horrible, very bad, no good day. Didn't do the order right. That ends in triumph. Through financial plot machinations that one of you will have to explain to me. But I think predominantly through all of that, they also, they just have their own independent stories that are going together as well. And Yaz probably feels like Grace, I think, is emerging as Industry Season 3's main character. She seems to be really in the spotlight.
Yeah, there was an essence of this that we kind of felt in Succession, that kind of like each season, if you look back at it, for the first 3 for sure, sort of centralize a character. And I think the difference between this and Succession is that sort of season 1 is sort of about everybody, and then they sort of like focus in on who they want. I think season 2 is certainly Harper's is sort of our main character, and I think it does seem very much so that Yasmin is our main character here in season 3. I do feel like all 3 of our main, like if I sort of pick our main characters here being like sort of Harper, Yasmin, and Robert, sort of our graduates who are sort of like, up and coming in the business world. They're all going through very similar journeys seemingly, even though they sort of have different backstories and different like, sort of pieces to their puzzle. But we get very quickly, I thought, in terms of the telling of this story, I think I assumed that the piece with her dad and Lady Yasmin was, and not that there doesn't have to be more, but I thought I was surprised by how much we got based on how I thought in episode 1 that might be something we were going to be tracking and sort of revealing towards the end of the season. And we basically get the scene that we thought we saw last week, I think in the flashbacks, where he becomes incredibly violent with her, throws wine in her face, is sitting on top of her, literally. And so her trying to balance, obviously, everything that's happening there. And I certainly think that there's still more to that story.
Oh yeah, they kill him for sure.
Right? And the other reveal that I don't think we knew last episode is Harper was there. Harper's
as
well on the boat.
Like if Harper is there, like the odds that she and Yasmin kill Yasmin's horrid father just like skyrocketed. Like if we always watch like on the like I'm gonna call it this is how little I know about the world of industry. That little stock line, like the little stock line. You know how it trends down and then it ticks up. I think stocks rising on they totally absolutely killed this horrid.
How many shares do we have on his life?
I actually think you might want to sell that. I mean, this is the kind of reverse thing, is that I think actually
I'll buy it for 69 cents.
You should actually be selling your Harper kills Yasmin's father stocks. I think the probability is so high right now.
Yeah, too high.
You want to sell high right now.
This horrible, wretched scumbag, Ian McShame, I call him. This horrible man. One of the single most deplorable figures I've seen on HBO, and that says a lot. I feel like this guy HBO sucks. This guy sucks.
Wow, weekend programming ranking terrible people on HBO.
High on my list. He sucks. The scene where he assaults Yasmin, and like how close, like it's disgusting. This was really horrible to watch. Really horrible to watch. Industry is a rough show, and we get through most of the episode. And like we don't have like too much like salacious content. I say that, and then like everything that happened with Rob and Nicole's 15-year-old daughter is on the screen as well. But I would say like up to a point, this is the least salacious episode of Industry. And then that scene happens. I mean, could have done without that. Definitely could have done without that. But I think it's certainly heightening whatever horrid fall happens to Yasmin's father, like whether he's actually dead or something else. But I certainly hope that they killed him. He did, like, no one on this show has deserved to be murdered more than Yasmin's father, and it's not particularly close.
Yeah, that young guy from episode 1.
Just kidding. But he didn't deserve it. He didn't deserve it. He didn't deserve it.
Well, but here there's some. I think the Yasmin story is incredibly compelling, and this is the thing about like these scenes are tough to watch, but this is certainly tells us a lot about Yasmin, her relationship with her father. I think a lot about the relationships she has been in thus far. She can't be detangled from her relationship with her father in terms of someone this episode. I think it's is it Venetia who gets called a Nepo hire, or are they referring when Bill comes to the floor, he's talking with Eric. Love when he's like, man, I didn't mean fire someone literally today.
I know.
You had 3 months to do it and you fired someone in the morning of the IPO. But it's so much part of her story. And then Emily, she has this this relationship that I would say is not developing. I think Yasmin is very much not interested in this relationship with Henry Muck, although she does say this will never happen. And then she does use some bit of information that she had been revealed to earlier to
by Sweet
him
Pea.
on. Yeah. Oh my God, is that why she's called Sweet Pea?
Oh wow, maybe.
She's got all the dirt on the urine in London.
I will say, I looked at the IMDb, Emily. Her name is fully Sweet Pea Go Lightly is how she's billed in the show. So I think that might be just her.
Wait, her last name is Go Lightly?
Josh, I sent you the full thing. I think her name is Sweet Pea Go Lightly.
Sweet Pea Go Lightly is as bad of a dude as Yasmin is. Yasmin's father is like how great of a name Sweet Pea Go Lightly is. Sweet Pea Go Lightly is one of the best names in
fully
the HBO
how she's
pantheon.
being credited. Emily.
Unreal.
Sweet Pea Go Lightly is her full name.
Incredible.
Unreal. But yeah, Yasmin gleans this information from Sweet Pea while she's sort of in the chaos of the IPO opening day. And she's like, why are you telling me all of this? My God. But we've seen Yasmin use her feminine charm to kind of get her way and to control certain situations. Rob certainly is a great indicator first season where, you know, Yasmin's really having her way with him. So she kind of like reaches into her bag of tricks and is like, okay, first of all, I know we need to get Henry more visible. He's doing all of the wrong things publicly for this IPO opening. People are freaking out. How do we get him A, out of this bathroom, and then B, sort of like under our wing in a way where we can kind of manage him, but maybe I need to control him from like a more feminine perspective, a more sexualized purview. Like he's trying to seduce her. He literally says that at the end of the episode when he invites her
I'm
over.
Trying to seduce you.
Well, like the funniest part about it is like he's like, yeah, he's done with his meal. He has dessert out. Like he's not even inviting her for a full meal. And she's like, okay. And you can even see when he calls her in the scene before where she's sort of talking with Eric. They both put their hats on. They tip their caps to each other, even though Eric basically berates her and is like, listen, you shouldn't have done what you did today, but like we got it. We got the job done. Just like keep an eye on that sort of thing.
She says, can we just talk to each other like we did in episode 1? He's like, yeah,
right.
Okay.
Exactly. But you see that Henry calls her and she's like, I'm a little exhausted. I don't know if I have like the like capacity to meet you tonight. But she still takes the bait, right? She shows up. I want to seduce you. She's like, okay. And then she does the classic Yasmin thing where she's like, I'm going to control you. Like, and I know what you like, but like, let's just throw that into the ether and see what happens. And he's into it.
I was wondering what she was about to make him do in the mirror.
Well, no.
Yeah. We've been there. I actually did wonder whether she was going to do
She's
like,
I know. All right, pee on the mirror.
Oh, God. Did you guys notice how many sink basins there were in that particular bathroom? There were like 6 of them. I was like, that's too much. Anyway, so
the only thing Emily likes more than responsibility, sink basins.
No, that's not true.
But she doesn't apparently. It's just too many of them.
Bathroom design. No. So we see her, you know, sort of like innocently, but not so much pee like in the bathroom like a normal person would, but like she is trying to kind of like harness that energy, catch him. He's into it. Vintage bottle of wine left behind. She sips it, gets a little on her face. That triggers the memory of her with her dad on the boat. But it is an interesting play on a lot of things that we've seen building in the last 2 seasons. Where is she going from here? How is she going to leverage this even further for her career and for her personally? I mean, she's used to being around powerful, rich men, and she's benefited greatly from having that status. So does it make sense to cozy up to Henry in a time where she's basically bait for all of the paparazzi in London, even if he's able to erase that one article about her? Does it make sense to kind of, you know, what's the next stepping stone? What's the next rung on the ladder for her where she can leverage that, have the money that she needs, both personally and professionally? Like, does it make sense for them to get together in some way? Or is it a larger ploy?
Yeah, hard to say. I think it's worth noting that the creators of Industry, Mickey Down and Conrad K, who gave a really great interview to Deadline on the other side of the season 3 premiere, the two of them, I think, subscribe to the Jesse Armstrong school of people don't fundamentally change all that much. And so that these characters will always effectively, essentially be who they are, which is tragic to consider, because that means Harper will always be a bit sociopathic. Yaz will probably always prioritize power.
I love that you call her Yaz, by the way.
Is that okay?
No, you're good.
Am I getting overly familiar?
I mean, you've known her long enough that you can probably start abbreviating her name. I get a little touchy about that, but
All right, I'm going to call her Yasmin just out of respect for people who just call Emily M without knowing her.
That's a good point.
She does not like it.
Both of you are totally fine. You're like fine in that universe, but it's the person that just meets you that abbreviates your name where you're like,
Listen, okay. Grace has been calling me Joe for years.
Jojo.
So, like she got there real quick.
Jojo Wigglesbot.
Yo, Jojo Wigglesbot.
I don't know why I extend his not a nickname.
I've heard a lot, but I don't think I've ever heard Jojo Wigglesbot. But if you're listening to the industry podcast, you better be calling me Jojo Wigglesbot for the rest of time.
I think the article from the Deadline interview is really good, but I think it's really interesting here about both Yasmin and Harper this episode. They go through they're intertwined in a way. They're again, they both end up doing something. So this is the scene where Yasmin gets Henry to go to this gentleman's club, ends up shoving Gregory Clark and Otto out of the building so that they're seen together on the front porch. This is what essentially saves the stock price by the end of the day, which is that Gregory Clark, the idea here is that he's rich enough that he could help fund Lumi in a way that all of the negative press about the fake numbers don't really matter if he actually has a real super mega rich investor. That's sort of the point here. That's what the press job that Yasmin does. And Yasmin comes back to Eric and he's like, wow, can you believe that the stock price went up? And she's like, actually, that was me. And he's like, I know. I was like, I actually did not want you to brag about you doing basically market manipulation. And Harper gets slapped on the wrist for knowing this insider information about Pierpoint's oil and gas numbers as well. So they both do something that's very shady. I think the thing about Yasmin, they're both.
That's what you did at that wedding, right? That was very shady when you held the umbrella.
That's right. Well, actually, unfortunately, it wasn't.
It wasn't shady enough.
It wasn't shady enough.
Yeah.
So they're both very good at their jobs, but they're both willing. This industry is ruthless enough, I think, from what we've seen with Eric and Bill and all of these players. Like Bill Adler comes down and is like, you got to fire someone, and Eric does it. He's like, okay, you didn't have to do it today, but you were gonna have to fire someone over the course of the rest. This is a very ruthless industry that they're a part of, hence the name of the show.
Yeah.
That you don't need to be extra, you don't need to cheat and go a step further to be sort of be stuck in this horrendous business that we're in. You just the nature of being in it and playing by the rules that are already set is already enough to sort of torment your soul, probably separate from your wife, all of this stuff. And these are two people who think that they need to go a step further. And I think specifically with Yasmin, the thing about her relationships, in season 1, it's with Robert, and she is controlling over him, I think, in response to the way she has been controlled pretty awfully by her father. But Robert is nothing. He's nobody. So that doesn't really get her anything. So then she tries with Celeste, and when she tries to assert power and be like, we are not doing business with my father, she's like, I don't need you. And so now she's in a situation where she has nobody and probably will be fired if enough of this sort of social media stuff, her drinking wine on the bus, if it gets sort of out there and she's too much of a liability for the organization, she will be fired. And so her only course of action is to try to find somebody that she can attach herself to. The problem is that she's going to find herself in a situation where she is not in control, and that's where she will probably inevitably butt heads with Henry in this relationship.
Speaking of butt heads, that is exactly who Henry and Robert are when they're throwing each other around Lumi in this episode.
Great set piece here, Josh.
Now, Emily, I know you're not a Game of Thrones person. You were one of the few who never indulged.
Yeah, here I am. The anomaly.
But I wanted to know what it felt like, Anomaly Fox, what it felt like watching a Kit Harington fight scene for the very first time. These are legendary on HBO.
We saw him.
Who do you think wins in a fight sight unseen, Jon Snow or Henry Muck?
Jon Snow, probably.
Is this why there wasn't a battle at the end of House of the Dragon? Because they saved all their money
saved their budget for the ball pit battle
between
Henry and Robert.
Ah, of course.
Yeah.
I loved the ball pit fight.
It was great.
It was great. The best part was you being like, why did he build the office this way? And then like the little girl came in and I was like, yeah, Josh, it's for like employees' kids. It's not supposed to be like a think tank for like adults.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure there are a few people that work at Lumi that like to sit out there and like get new ideas. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I thought that the fight was hilarious. I loved seeing Rob kind of like lose his shit a little bit. I don't think that is a thing we've seen him really do in any of the seasons so far. He's always sort of played the beta role to whomever else he's dealing with and been controlled instead of being the one to speak out and kind of like talk back. So for him to kind of like muster up all of this like frustration and anger towards Henry, which is well deserved, by the way. Henry's not taking any of his advice. He's going rogue. He's answering questions with the press that's making the market really shake around this IPO opening. And he's had enough. He's done. And he has some really thoughtful quips back at Henry. And then like Henry pushes him and that pushed Rob over the edge. And then suddenly he's getting hit by a plush sunflower. So like here we are. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's a very funny scene. I love all of the employees of Lumi sitting in the background being like, and
people
like,
waking up from their naps.
Yeah. They're little like, like think tanks and brain spots or whatever the hell these corporations do. But like it was very fun to watch. I thought it was a great scene.
Yeah. I do need this from Rob. I do need not sad sack Robert. So for him to have a couple of moments this episode where he's really pushing, first of all, when Henry is on the phone, to be like, hang up, and then he writes another message that says hang up.
Yeah.
The same message again. And then
you're
to
beginning to become overly familiar.
Getting in a physical confrontation. I need to figure out Henry's relationship with his
physical confrontation, a PC. I believe that's also what Henry said. You should call me and be done with it. Call me a PC and be done with it.
Oh yeah. He's like, no, I'll let everyone call
and I think Robert goes, sorry, I'm a Mac.
Yeah, great.
Bye. We're done.
What's up with Henry's relationship with Katie, his like administrative assistant? Is there some? Am I reading into like it's?
I don't know.
Awkward.
I feel like there's going to be something weird where like Katie like gets a diaper for him or something like that. Do you know what I mean? I think that we're on the precipice of that.
I have a theory. What, you think that Henry wears Depends? Is that your thought?
Yeah, I think he might be. He's into urine.
He
might be saving up some diapers for Yasmin in a couple episodes. Who knows?
He loves. Forget PC. He loves PP. So my theory about Henry, and it may take a few episodes for this to bear out, but stand with me. Ready?
Okay.
Henry, not a good guy.
Oh.
My bold prediction is I think Henry likely,
sucks.
despite the fact that he runs a clean energy company, is trash. That's my thought. That's where I think this is going with Henry. Grace, your thoughts?
I think what if the plot twist is that he's actually the best dude ever? Could be. We don't know yet.
Could be.
No, it seems pretty bad.
Robert gets to tool him around, but he is still having, a really hard time. He has to go back to Nicole's when he realizes the necklace that Venetia gave to him is still there. He meets Nicole's daughter. They have like this very awkward interaction that leads to him trying to console her, and then she tries to like make a move on him, and he keeps saying no. And then eventually she's like, I gotta go to school. I gotta take a test. He's like, wait, what? You're 16? It's just, no, I'm 15. And I mean, like, oh man, industry, come on.
I mean, to be fair, Robert says no the whole time. He's saying no. So, I mean, this scene could have been so much worse if Robert like indulged. He does not. He says no the whole time. I feel like he is growing as a character. I think
it was brutal on the other side too. Of I think like he talked about how just a minute before that in that same scene, she asked him, do you have a mom? And he said yes. Unfortunately, she was too present. And I feel like the implications of Robert's relationship with his mother are unfortunately similar to, I think, what we see with Yaz or Yasmin and her father. So that was looming heavily for me over the scene between Robert and Nicole's daughter, and just like the way that Robert sort of like withdraws, right? Like I feel like the way that like he holds back. Harry Lottie, who plays the character, I think just did such a great job of like, there was like she's the 15-year-old. He feels like he's like a teenager himself in that scene, if not younger. Like there's just this childishness to the way he carries himself as that character. That was a really, really uncomfortable, horrible scene in a lot of ways, but also like really well done. I think that the work that they're doing with Robert this season has been pretty impressive.
Agreed. I also think it's interesting where they're talking about Nicole and her daughter is like, oh, you actually liked her. Like she was like not like, I don't even know what it's like to have a mother, because that's how self-centered she was and focused on money and all of this stuff. And you fit the type of someone she would go after too. So like there's an acknowledgement that she was, not a good person. And then we see her daughter make the move on Rob, and it feels like, ooh, not far from the tree either. You know what I mean? It's pretty awkward to watch.
Yeah, I think that there was some allusions to this in season 2 as well, that with Robert's mom, in terms of that I think potentially more so than with not more so, but I think the difference in the relationship between Yasmin and her father and then Robert and his mother is essentially that I do get the sense that he was sexually abused is the read that I get from that, which I think at first I was not super. I mean, just the fact that it's happening, but sort of bringing Nicole back as sort of this somebody who tries this thing with Harper in season 1, and you bring her into the story with Robert. But I do think there's a way in which it contextualizes a little bit of why Robert might not see this relationship as toxic as it actually is, because it's not as bad as his relationship with his mother, right? Like it's not his mom. It is actually but it is a woman who has control and power over him. And that's like, it's not that it's okay, it's just not as bad as it has been, which is an awful situation for Robert. Like if that's his headspace, that is incredibly unfortunate. And then to be in this world where he is getting told at his work, like, you're becoming too familiar. Like I do not want you around. Like this cannot be the best place for Robert to be in. Literally, can we not forget this all happens the day Nicole died. This is this is not like we have moved the week in time. We are the same day. And so the fact that there's a moment too here with Yasmin where she basically has a panic attack on the floor, and the response to a panic attack is like, you got to get back to work. We're kind of short staffed here. Just get back on the line. Which tells you how revolting this industry is, that it's just like, just keep going, just keep at it. And also at the end of the day, like, what a successful, great day we had at work, everybody. It's like, that's horrific. That's terrible.
Yeah, completely. Then should we talk about Harper and what's going on with Harper and the moves she seems to be making? Like Harper kind of throws in with Petra in this episode. Anna's really not thrilled about it. Anna's the boss and is really unhappy with Petra as well. But then mutually, like, this would be different if at least Harper had like really cleanly impressed Petra, but she like dirtied up her impression on Petra by taking too much glee in how she helped her out on this day. And so now, like, where does Harper stand, Emily, like going into the next couple of episodes? She's in a weird spot, I feel like.
Well, I think we're kind of watching her this season grasp for whatever surface she can get her hand onto, and then consistently being cut down because no one's falling for her shit anymore. So this is a clean example of that. Season 3, episode 2, where Petra's like, how did you know to do that? Like, tell me why we got such a good price today. And the sheer acknowledgement of like, oh, I undercut this. This is insider information, blah, blah, blah. And Petra just being like, no, that's not how we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And also, I know you didn't graduate. Like, rough, hard. She's not making any friends. That's kind of how this comes across, especially with like the two other employees that she sort of finds at her desk before she walks Petra out to her car. Everyone's kind of excited and enjoying the day and like what a successful, IPO day this was. They're doing coke at her desk and they're about to go to a show.
That's business. That's woke business coke.
That's woke coke. Yeah.
Woke coke.
And she's not invited, right? Like no one's like, Harper, tag along. Come on. Like there's no camaraderie here. She is othered very specifically in this role. And she's not doing herself any favors here. I think she thinks she is when she gives this tip initially, right? Like anything to kind of climb out of the assistant job and get back onto the trading floor, or to at least have, the 3 screens in front of you where you can kind of like magically doctor up your next move. It's not that simple, right?
Well, I think to the point of the article with the showrunners, Josh, I think the question that I really get out of this episode is not can they change? I think these people are the people that they are. I'm so interested in Petra, played wonderfully by Sarah Goldberg here. The like language she's using is like
it's like classic corporate speak, but like on another level, like financially, you know what I
don't
mean?
want someone whose thinking is confined by the orthodoxy of our times, is one of the lines she speaks to Harper. And Harper says, I think there's just people, circumstances, and opportunity. And that's it. I think that the thing is, in both of their scenarios, Harper and Yasmin, they potentially could just be very good at their job without taking these shortcuts. And I think to Petra's point here is that shortcut literally only works at Pierpoint. Like you've only worked at Pierpoint, so it's the only place that you have information. But when we try to go somewhere else, you won't have that trick up your sleeve. So don't delight in the pleasure of of what happened. There's also this interesting conversation earlier where Petra says, Eric called me 9 times to say don't hire you, and it's either because he hates you or he doesn't want you to work somewhere else. Yeah. And I don't get the sense that Eric wants Harper back, although maybe if she came sort of groveling, maybe, but I think that's a potential risk for him. I think that information is interesting, and then Petra revealing she knows she didn't graduate. But I think the question here in terms of like, can they change? It's not can they change. It's can they be enough of sort of who this business needs them to be without sort of like you still can be a pretty awful person to work in this industry, and is that who they will end up being, or will they continually, in the effort to think that what they need to do to get to the top of the mountain here, continue to try and take these shortcuts that Harper's literally guilty of insider trading. Like, that's jail time. That's jail time. So, that's the sacrifices they think they're willing to make. And just whether the show
interesting observation, because I think like Harper probably feels like she's in jail to some, like she's in like job jail right now, but like she's not at least in literal jail. And it makes me wonder, because I think like, one of the things about this show often is like, oh, just when these characters think that like their lives couldn't get worse, they somehow do. So Harper going to jail wouldn't shock me as a landing point for the character this season, or at least in the future at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've had failures within the business, but not, somebody died with Robert. Right. Like, so there have been like, real world implications, but to the extent that like Harper bounced back to a degree, like she has a job that she could just be happy, and is probably making a good amount of money to do that. And there is a way in which like there's a little bit of potential for her to get an in and do it sort of the right way, but she is so desperate and so power hungry that I think is different from both Robert and Yasmin. I think there's like a necessity to why Harper thinks that she must do these things. It's, I think, different than both Yasmin. And we haven't really seen Robert, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, be like super shady, just sort of like self-sabotaging to a degree. It's like, just stop, just relax, just hold it. But that's the piece I think like she won't be able to help herself. She will have to keep trying, and at what cost? Probably nothing for Harper. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Emily, did you like the scene where Harper calls Eric and they're both on the phone and then they silently hang up on each other, and how much that reminded you of when Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio get on the phone with each other in The Departed before either of them dox each other of who they are in the police department and the Costello mafia family?
Well, thank God you're all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've been looking for you.
Yeah. He's very upset. We're all
very upset. This is Sergeant Sullivan. No, so there's a lot of calling and hanging up in this episode that I enjoy.
Well,
it's a
their
lot.
job.
No, but specifically to figure out that the Gentleman's Club has both Clark at it and the other guy, I forget his name right now.
Otto.
Yeah, Otto, right.
Mm-hmm.
So like Yasmin's like, call, just say you need to leave a message, hang up immediately. I'm going to do the same over here. And then we watch Harper do the same thing over at Pierpoint, right? It's a kind of catch me if you can, if we're really going to play the Leo game, Josh, of figuring out like where people are and if they know that they're being watched. That's kind of what it feels like to me. It's sort of like, yeah, I'm going to call and hang up on you. Like, oh, is this the direct call to your desk? Cool. I just wanted to check and see. Now you know that I'm watching. Now you know that was me. So it's like a bit of a signal, right? I think that's how I kind of interpret it.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is, I mean, I said this about Eric called 9 times. And so
9 times.
Petra gives this, like, this is what I think. These are the 2 options. He hates you or he doesn't want you to work anywhere else. And so then the fact that she calls him and she can't say anything, I think you have to assume Eric thinks that must have been Harper who called. But I do think there's a line in the article as well, Josh, that they said they think that they underwrote for Eric in both seasons 1 and season 2.
Yeah, because they describe him as like this killer and then they never really show him that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they felt like they didn't give Ken Lung enough.
So we obviously have this, like, you know, there is this relationship with Yasmin, but he's been very clear of, like, basically, like, I'll fire you, like, you know, and she has this moment of being like, can you just not be the way that you're being? Can you just be like actually like real and be nice? And that seems to like work to a degree, but I wonder whether
they put hats
not,
on each other after.
Put little hats on, and he's propped up his little sunflower guy. The temptation of like how good Harper actually could be, like I think that you know, these are like sort of now Eric's two you know, the people he's mentoring, and he had one, he had the other, and the other one is sort of like calling back. Whether or not we actually see, you know, all 3 of them together back at Pierpoint at some point, I think is interesting. But yeah, we leave that sort of, they just hang up on each other. They don't say a word. They don't say anything, which I kind of liked as a choice in the show.
What if we find out if Eric was on the boat too?
Oh wow, everyone's on the boat.
Everyone's on the boat.
That's like very How to Get Away with Murder.
I can't wait till the end of the season where we find out everyone's in the boat, and then we pan over and Benoit Blanc he's like, I'm also been on the boat.
It's a
and then
it's
actually a Knives Out mystery.
Yeah.
Eric's like the captain.
Oh, and there's like always like sort of this like feeling of shattered glass on the industry logo. So could this all have been a glass onion? I feel like the way that like How to Get Away with Murder used to work is like every episode would peel back another layer of the onion and you would find out like another character was more involved in one thing that makes them look super sus. So this week it was Harper. Who is it next week? Robert's probably on the boat, I would guess. So I feel like there does feel like there's like some level of a protection circle around Yaz. So I wonder what that is all about. Could be interesting. Before we wrap, I need to squeegee one thought out of my brain. It's one of my dumb ones. This has no depth to it at all. Sitting there watching Kit Harington, full bearded Kit Harington, wearing like the green sleeved shirt with the white shirt and like a green hat just made me think so much that like in a live action Mario Brothers movie, how great he'd be as Luigi. Wow. And then it made me think Lumigi. And so I just had to squeegee that out.
Squeegee out Lumigi.
I had to squeegee that out. That's the only other real take I have about industry this week, I think.
The show, I think, has this moments of, it's very funny. There's a moment where he got in the fight with Robert and his shirt is ripped and he comes out and the board is there. The board visits 2 companies. There's a lot of the same thing happening everywhere. And he's like, don't I have a jacket in my office? And he's like, no, you implemented a no jacket.
The no jacket policy.
and he had to put on like a cool like quarter zip, you know?
Yeah.
Love the quarter zip. Very funny.
Really good. Really
good. There's a thing I've heard where like these shows, House of the Dragon did this a lot, where it's like every scene in Harrenhal is either in one of two settings, one of them being the Weirwood tree, and that's obviously because they built that huge set and they're like, we got to keep using it. Do you think any subsequent scenes are in the ball pit at Lumi? I hope so. I hope every week we have one fight in the ball pit.
Emily, do you have any sense of how expensive it is to install a ball pit?
It's not expensive at all. You can buy ball pits online for your toddler now. People do it all the time. Like one of those weird things that like millennials are doing for their kids. And I don't feel great about it. You're supposed to go to Chuck E. Cheese and get like 6 different strains of a virus off of the ball pits there. Not have your own clean ball pit in your living room.
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask the follow-up of if they're so inexpensive, why don't we have one? But I think you just answered.
Yeah, I don't think installing it is the problem. I think it's like the maintenance.
The maintenance. Yeah, because you got to like hose it down. Yeah.
I mean, think about the amount of Purell you would need.
The delousing.
Although, if you are Henry Muck, maybe you don't mind you don't need to hose it down because.
Ew! Yeah, someone always pees in the ball pit, don't they? Oh no.
Also, very funny Robert line, who is literally that day, his romantic interest has died. And he shoves everybody outside, and then he turns around and he goes, "Hello, sir. Could you do me a favor? Can you go the F that way?"
Yeah, that was great. That was great. Yeah. Robert has decided that he is a man and he is relentless, I think.
He is relentless.
In multiple moments in this episode.
I told Jess Sterling this week. I used to say that to myself a lot before I realized I was trans.
Who knows what kind of awakenings await some of these characters? You know,
it's like, oh yeah, man, and you're relentless. You're just trans, you idiot.
Like, oh man, that's not working.
You idiot.
That's not working.
It only made you more depressed, Eric.
Oh my god.
That's not working out. Put a Lumi hat on me.
All right. Well, is that Smoke and Mirrors? That's smoking. Oh, the last week's episode title gets named in this episode.
Saw that.
Like, yeah, he called and he left Italian. I didn't understand. And she was like, she says the line from last week's.
Yeah.
So is this going to happen next week? Well, the Smoke and Mirrors also gets referenced in this episode.
Well, next week's episode, I believe, is called It. Will Pennywise the Clown show up?
I don't like that.
Yeah. At the ball pit.
At the ball pit.
He's a clown. It's very circusy.
I feel very bad about this.
Well, next week's episode, It is going to be it's like going to be airing on my birthday, so we'll have a little birthday party for industry season 3.
That's why the ball pit's still there. We're taking you to Chuck
and a clown for your birthday too.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Happy early birthday to.
Are we sure it's not
Leeder.
IT?
It could be. No, it's lowercase t. It's actually to just figure out what happened with the power outage. The whole episode is a bottle episode about the power outage in London.
Tell me you don't work in finance without telling me you don't work in finance. My husband.
I still think it could be It.
It might be. We never know.
Well, Jeff, people should return. They should be subscribed to the podcast.
They certainly should. You should subscribe to It. It being RHAP. We know scripted TV. That's robhasawebsite.com/scripted for all the information on how to subscribe and watch us on YouTube as well. We've got the video versions of the industry podcasts happening. So many other podcasts happening on We Know Scripted TV. Grace Leeder and Taryn Armstrong talk about TV every single week on the Tastemakers, where they're telling you what's worth watching and what's worth skipping. I believe you're getting fairly close to a return of a podcast between Grace and Taryn coming up. Certain power plays are being executed outside of the scope of industry. So you want to be subscribed to the We Know Scripted TV podcast feed for all of that once that drops. In addition to all kinds of other shows, TV for Real, the Weekend program, Down the Hatch, officially back and here on RHAP, We Know Scripted TV. So check all of that out. robhasawebsite.com/scripted.
All right.
That's the spiel.
That's the spiel.
Ratings and reviews, greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Very much.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think that's it for now. We'll be back next week to talk about episode 3 of season 3 of Industry. It. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.